2025 meeting of the Town of Southampton Conservation Board. The board's meetings continue to be hybrid, which means they're both in person at Town Hall and via video conference through Zoom webinar. If you go to the town website and click on the town clerk's agendas and meetings portal, you can watch the live stream video of the meeting, and there is a link to submit written comments for the public record. You can also join the Zoom webinar through the town clerk's portal. If you are attending via Zoom and wish to speak during the meeting, then please alert our moderator by clicking the raise hand icon or type in the chat box. Thank you. I invite everyone to rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What is your pleasure on the minutes of May 14th, 2025?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is WB 24001 Farron Farvid, and the applicant requests an adjournment to July 23rd, 2025. Is there anyone in the public or on Zoom that wishes to speak on this application?
Move to adjourn the application to July 23rd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 024057 Gregory Robbins and Linda Robbins.
This is a new public hearing, and we do have affidavits of posting and mailing in compliance with the town code, so the board does have jurisdiction to open the hearing.
Thank you. Are you folks here for this hearing?
Yes.
Are you the agent?
Yes. Do you have any new information you're handing out tonight? No.
Okay. You may present your application.
Have to sign in here? My name's Keith Masseria with McLean Associates. I'm representing Mr. and Mrs. Robbins at 31 East Shore Drive in Southampton. The proposed project is to install stone revetment consisting of 2 layers of armor stone, approximately 1.75 feet in diameter, over stone bedding and geotextile filter fabric. Landward of the revetment would be a 10-foot non-turf buffer, which would be planted with native plantings such as American beach grass. It'd be an untreated timber boardwalk constructed over the top of the new stone revetment to provide safe access to the beach area. The purpose of the project is to eliminate the erosion that is currently occurring along the west side of the property. There's been some loss of soil as well as a lot of vegetation along that side of the property. The current design has approvals from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation as well as the Department of State. The Army Corps permit was not required at this location given the location of the project with relation to the spring high tide line. The proposed revetment would be similar to the revetments installed at 47 East Shore Drive, which is approximately 288 feet to the north of the site, 51 East Shore Drive, which is directly north of that property, and 59 East Shore Drive, which is 2 properties to the north of that. The 2 revetments nearest to the project site, which are in a similar landscape, in our opinion, don't appear to be exacerbating the erosion. They're protecting the upland land very well, though, so we think that's a fairly good case study for installing the revetment at this site to protect the property whilst not disturbing the beach area. The other revetment, which is at 59 East Shore Drive, is sandwiched between a couple of bulkheads, so that one's a little bit harder to, decipher like what the impacts of that revetment have been. But so we wouldn't exactly use that as a great example, because I do think that the bulkheads are likely causing erosion, and with the waves crashing against like the vertical structures. We did supply an alternatives analysis to the town conservation board at their request, which included alternatives such as just vegetating the shoreline, bulkheading the shoreline, the boulders scattered along the beach area. One alternative that obviously we would love to do would just be to naturally vegetate the shoreline, more similar to what currently exists at the site. But given the 2 miles or so fetch across to the other side and the impacts from the northwest direction, the vegetation can't withstand the wave action, which can be in upwards of 7 feet in height, depending on the conditions that are occurring at the project site. The DEC considers anything above 5 feet in height to be a high wave energy environment, which wouldn't typically support vegetation, which is why we're proposing the solution that we are, which is to armor the shoreline with stone. We did start out with some more robust revetment designs that were increasing the height to provide a little bit more protection, but we since revised that to what's currently shown on the plans, which matches, the top of the revetment matches the existing grade of the yard. And that was at the request of the different permitting agencies that we were dealing with, aside from the town. So that's pretty much it regarding the proposed scope of work. I don't know if anybody from the board has any questions.
I have one question. Do you have a measurement, can you quantify the location and the amount of erosion over some time frame?
At this beach in particular, or like since
You
the,
said that one of the reasons why you want to put armored shore device here is because of erosion. So I'm asking you, how much erosion? What kind of erosion? How much time, how much space, how much soil is lost?
it seems like at least, I mean, we've looked at historic aerial imagery over the last, like decade, basically. It's retreated several feet, at least onto the property. It's undermined the staircase that's leading down to the beach. It's washed out pockets of vegetation along the beachfront, which I think is shown in some of the photographs that we have in our application. I don't have exact numbers though, as far as
Okay, when you say it's eroded several feet, do you mean the water is several feet closer and coming closer to the property?
no, the spring high tide line is several feet landward of where all of the proposed work is above the spring high tide line. The loss of like the grass and the lawn area and the vegetation and everything that was along the slope leading down to the beach, that is now since eroded back onto the property.
And is this a fairly regular, methodical erosion? Or is it something that happens maybe once every several years when there's a humdinger of a storm?
We think it's seasonal. We don't think it's definitely when we get the nor'easters late in the winter on an annual basis.
On some applications where a shore hardening device is applied for, we can look at where it's proposed to be placed, and usually landward of that is an area with sometimes where there's more serious erosion, where there's really no vegetation. It's bank run sand. I don't see anything fresh like that on the photos that you submitted.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I don't see any such lack of vegetation or the observance of bank run sand that usually indicates current erosion.
Okay, I mean, maybe we didn't, I think we have several photos that maybe weren't submitted with the application then, but there's certainly some that show the bare soils. I mean, I think this is,
There's
in
a
our
packet of photos in here from McLean Associates.
yes, we have those, and then also in the alternatives analysis on the sheet 2 of 10, I think, shows a pretty good photograph of some loss of vegetation and kind of a vertical drop off between the lawn area and the beach.
Okay. I have no further questions at this time.
Before you get up there, Marty, is there a copy of the staff report that's not in here, or the any of your alternatives drawings? There's nothing else in the file except a couple of surveys.
Excuse me, my staff report is not in the file.
No, not in this one.
It's in the packet.
It's in your packet.
Okay, but your suggested drawings, are any of those in here? No, they're not in here.
No, there are no drawings.
Okay.
Good evening, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated April 17, 2025. It's a 5-page report that provides characterization of site conditions and expresses a host of concerns regarding the pending application. Before I provide an additional comment, I want to hand out some photographs. I had my staff visit the site both on April 10th. I'll hand out those photos. And then I had my staff return to the site on the morning of May 23rd. And the reason why I requested that they reassess the site conditions is that was the morning after the recent significant nor'easter that we had. So I'll hand out those photos. Should have additional copies here as well. Yeah, I have a number of sets.
Okay. Oh, all right, so it's all set.
So just to speak to the current conditions, as indicated, the property is residentially developed. It has a one-story ranch that was built in 1964 with basement crawl space. There's a deck as well. The house is situated at a higher elevation than the beach. The house is actually in Zone X, which is outside restricted FEMA flood zones. It stands at an elevation about 7 to 8 feet above sea level. It's located approximately 80 feet landward of the highest significant marine rack and wetland boundary at this site, and deck is located about 66 feet landward of wetlands. As seen in the photographs, there is no emergency at present. I could see no evidence that the existing residence is being threatened by erosion or flooding. Yes, there is a minor escarpment and some damaged vegetation along the upper beach, but none of what I observed would be considered significant. As was alluded to in the prior testimony, the property has frontage on a little Peconic Bay, as is classic for this bay area. You have fluctuations in beach width seasonally during the summer. The beaches tend to be wider. There's less risk of storm events. During the winter, the beaches tend to be a little bit narrower. One of the things that stands out in these photos is this is Bay Beach, which is heavily characterized by bay cobble. Bay cobble is washed up from the bay floor during significant tides and storm events. The cobble is critical with regards to stabilizing the beach. So at present, because of the heavy cobble layer, you don't have any significant risk of erosion of that beach. Typically, when we consider applications for armoring of a waterfront property, and as this board knows, this property is located along one of the only remaining stretches of unarmored beach in the North Sea area. Typically, when we look at an application like this, the first consideration is whether or not the armoring and modification of the beach is reasonable and necessary. So we look at whether or not the existing residents and residential improvements, whether or not there is evidence that they're being seriously threatened by flooding and erosion and storm events. And I could find no evidence of that at present whatsoever. There is concern that when you armor a beach like this by placement of rock, it results in loss of wetland and beach habitat. So you're losing habitat for native coastal vegetation. It adversely impacts shorebirds, wading birds, and other wildlife. Often times when you armor a beach with rock in the fashion that's proposed, it can actually accelerate erosion, seaward of that rock armor. And the reason that occurs is even if the rock armor is initially buried in sand, when that rock armor becomes exposed and you have a significant tidal surge coming in, a wave attack, that wave and tidal energy smacks against that linear wall of rock. And what it does is deflect the energy downward, which can actually result in an increased scour of the seaside beach, and It can result in a lowering of the elevation of the beach. And when the beach elevation is lowered, that means that when you have future storm events, the waves are going to be that much higher and the surge is going to be that much stronger. So you really don't want to give consideration to armoring a beach because when it's not necessary, because it oftentimes not only can adversely impact the foreshore beach on the seaward side of the rock, it can have significant downdrift impacts as well. What tends to happen when you have a rush of tidal water or waves hit a bulkhead or rock armor, the energy is not only deflected downward, the energy races along that rock wall. And then when you have abutting land that's not armored, that land is typically at greater risk of erosion because of the increased wave and water energy as a result of the deflection by the rock armor. It was mentioned that further to the north, this board had permitted rock armor at several properties. The site conditions were different there. Number one, notwithstanding that we had a landowner before this board with an application to reconstruct the concrete seawall, and notwithstanding that we asked that landowner to evaluate practicable alternatives to look at soft solutions, full knowing that seawalls can have adverse impacts. The applicant decided to litigate, and the courts overrode this board and directed the building inspector to issue a permit to allow that vertical concrete seawall to be built. That, as a consequence of that construction, we began to see some downdrift impacts from that wall. And the next few abutting properties were very concerned that the presence of that court-ordered concrete seawall was going to accelerate erosion in front of their properties. They had scour, which was a lot more significant than what you're seeing at these properties. And they had less cobble on their beach. So this board did elect to allow for rock on several properties downdrift of the court-ordered concrete seawall in order to diminish their concerns about possible damage in the future from that wall construction. This is an area that's not only unarmored, but it's also separated from those rock armored properties to the north by open space that's owned in common by the Bayview Oaks Association, which provides access to the beach, which is privately held. That property, that open space, is very stable. And so the conditions along this section of the Little Peconic Bay Beach are a lot more stable than they were on those properties further to the north when the town had permitted rock armor. The other thing that's happening is, notwithstanding the board's permitting of that armor further to the north, where we're hearing that the pace of climate change and global sea rise is accelerating at a fast pace and was once envisioned. That becomes an important factor in the need to consider other options, natural shoreline protection and stabilization options that are less likely to have adverse impacts on the beach and on downdrift homes when you do have a storm event. So that being said, summation, I don't see a need for rock armor at this property at this time. Thanks. Excuse me 1 minute. I'd like to just offer just a few last comments. In the event that the landowner is yet concerned with the minor escarpment and the erosion, there are other options that can be looked at, including creating a higher cobble berm and using substantial natural vegetation to stabilize the upper beach. Thank you.
You're up.
Thank you for that. We had emailed Marty at one point towards the tail end of, after we had submitted our alternatives analysis with a potential alternative that we thought might provide somewhat of a middle ground with armoring and the natural vegetation that I wouldn't mind at least like mentioning at this meeting, in that we could potentially continue with some of the plantings that we have within that 10-foot wide buffer and come down the slope onto the beach in the area that's currently vegetated, but plant between the stones that we currently have. So it could provide a hybrid sort of option where if we get a storm and it does wipe out the vegetation, at least we still have the stone there and the homeowner's property is salvaged. If the plants do wind up washing out, they could always be replanted in the areas between the stones along the beach. That was something that we thought we could add to the plans that would potentially appease the board. We've done this at other locations where it provides a natural-based approach to add to the revetment. We did review some of the alternatives that were provided in the report that was provided to us, and we sort of like the idea of placing the stones like somewhere between the high tide and the low tide area, but through some research, we didn't really find that there was like enough supporting evidence that would say that would be enough of an improvement at this site to prevent any sort of further landward soil loss on the property. And in addition to that, we thought that in our experience, a lot of the other permitting agencies don't like to see stone or any other material for that matter being placed within the water body. So we also didn't really consider that option any further beyond that point. But I think that's all I really have. And also, I know that there's a history behind those other revetments and why they were installed, and there's the concrete seawall and the court order, and the sand is like a little bit different in those areas than it is over by this property. But I think the fact that the sand is not quite as coarse and is lighter, and the fact that it is actually staying there in even though the revetments do currently exist, I think further supports the fact that this revetment, only being approximately 2.5 feet in height, isn't going to have these adverse impacts that we think it might.
This board does not like, in general, hardened shore devices. So we do like to look at alternatives. The law calls for us to ask for alternatives. And there may be something you can do. Substantial plantings can make a big difference. And when I say substantial, I mean plantings that are taller, tougher than beach grass, some shrub kind of things that's going to have a deeper root system. We want a deep root system. We want something that can stand the salt and the abuse of wind in a location such as this. Marty suggested adding more cobble. That's a possibility. We got to be really careful when we get things that are not normally there. Do you want to adjourn this and figure out something else that might work?
Sure, if that's possible, I guess in advance of the next meeting, if there could be like a working conversation, so we can possibly come
Yeah,
up with
and
Next meeting, well,
Marty can be helpful in between too, if you just send an email to run something by him. It looks like you're not under the gun to get something right away because it doesn't seem like there's any imminent loss here.
Yeah, not right. I would agree with that. Not to the house or anything for that matter. It's more of stabilizing the yard and the open space along between that and the house and the beach area.
by the same token, plantings would or sooner rather than later would give them a chance to take hold before the weather were to turn bad. Give them a good 6 months.
This is a real good time to
before.
plant.
Yeah, so
Now,
we'll come up with a planning plan.
I asked you earlier about the extent of the erosion. If you did take some time, what I think could be really helpful is to understand how much stone is being washed away, if any. Because it could be that if you dump a couple of truckloads of sand, of stone there every 5 years, that's all you need to do. Maybe even less. But we don't know that. We don't know what it takes. But because it's not imminent of losing property, of losing a house, there's time to figure some of those things out. The problem with putting in something that's heavy stone is that it becomes permanent. And we never hear an applicant asking to take it away. So we want to be very careful that we don't do something here that's going to affect a neighbor's property. So those are just some thoughts under the heading of exploring alternatives. I suspect there's something that might work for your client. Is anything else to say tonight?
No, I don't think so.
Before we adjourn? Ask if there's any comments from the public. Is there anyone in the public who wants to speak in this application or on Zoom? then how much time do you want?
Maybe, the meetings every 2 weeks?
We
It's
meet
the
twice a
second and
month.
fourth Wednesday, so the next meeting is June 11th, and then there's June 25th.
So maybe June 25th.
Is there a motion to adjourn to June 25th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'll give you my packet. Where's my packet? Not that back.
Everybody give me the photos back? George? Everybody give me everything back that I'm supposed to have back?
Yes,
Yes.
Thank you.
but you're right to ask me, Tom.
Hmm?
You're right to ask me.
Some people have a tendency to hand things back later.
I thought I'd wait till you get the next folder out.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda is resolution to schedule a public hearing, A024044, Bradley A. Edgar and Lauren D. Edgar. Is there a motion to schedule a public hearing for July 9th?
So moved.
Second.
Resolve that the notice of such hearing be published in the official town newspaper and one other newspaper of general circulation at least 10 days prior to the July 9th, 2025 public hearing pursuant to Chapter 325-8C1 of Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Advisory reports, 26 for the planning board, 26 Hillside Road.
Good evening again. I'm Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. This is a pending residential subdivision for a fairly large tract on Hillside Road in the hamlet of Shinnecock Hills. There are two recommended comments. First is that based upon a field assessment completed by the Environment Division on May 22nd, 2025, the track is marked by a great number of statuesque trees above a large expanse of mowed lawn. These trees have considerable value with regards to maintaining air quality, conserving energy, sequestering carbon, and providing songbird habitat, and thus need to be protected to the maximum extent practicable. And second, all trees with a minimum diameter at breast height of 8 inches or greater need to be located, surveyed, and identified to species on the subdivision plat, with tree protection zones established as radii consistent with the canopy drip lines around those trees, which are being earmarked for preservation.
Motion to send those comments to the planning board.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Denise Maynard.
It's a pending two-lot subdivision for a residentially developed property at 240 Halsey Lane in Bridgehampton. There are several recommended comments. First indicates that based upon an Environment Division field assessment completed on May 27, 2025, the tract contains an active purple martin gourd rack house above the westerly rail fence, whose continued protection and maintenance should be encouraged as their breeding populations depend almost entirely on man-made housing. Second, although this migratory species is apparently secure in New York, purple martin populations have declined by 39% statewide since 1985, with some potential for further long-term decline due to a host of factors. And lastly, the western part of the tract should continue to be managed as mowed field or meadow to support and sustain the birds with a minimum 40 feet wide north-south treeless corridor maintained north of the existing frame sheds.
Motion to send those comments to the planning board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? For the ZBA, Brandon Josephson and Sarah Church.
Say pending variance application for property where residential redevelopment is being proposed at 22 Bay Avenue in the Hamlet of Noyak. There are two recommended comments. The first indicates that administrative wetland permit application number WAA 25050 was received on April 1st, 2024, followed by submittal of the updated survey as prepared by F. Michael Hemmer, dated January 4, 2024, with the latest revision date of April 7, 2025, on April 12, 2025, in order to request a town wetland permit for the residential redevelopment plans, which are the subject of the pending variance application. Second, based upon an Environment Division site assessment completed on May 21, 2024, the proposed improvements are compliant with the wetland construction setbacks required pursuant to Section 325-9. Accordingly, the requisite administrative wetland permit has been drafted and will be issued as soon as possible.
Motion to send those comments to the zoning board of appeals.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Atterbury LLC.
This is a pending variance application for a large estate property at 20 Westbury Drive in Shinnecock Hills that has frontage on the Shinnecock Bay. There are two recommended comments. First, indicates that the planned residential improvements for which variances are being sought do not require a town wetlands permit, as they are located greater than 50 feet landward of surface waters where at least 100 linear feet of functional bulkhead exists. Second, notwithstanding the above, there are yet outstanding issues at the subject property that need to be resolved by administrative wetland permit, consistent with communications had between the Environment Division and the project architect in February 2025. The required remedial measures that still need to be wetland permitted include completed demolition of the former hot tub adjacent to the guest house, relocation of AC units, and building of a wood tie wall south of the guest house, abandonment of illicit discharge pipes, installation of needed subsurface drainage, and removal of illegal geese deterrents.
Motion to send those comments to the zoning board of appeals.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Administrative wetland permits are in your packets. Resolution of conditional approval, Timothy Field and Diane Field. Any discussion?
Move to issue.
Second.
Resolve that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to Timothy Field and Diane Field for the proposed project on the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 025001, John P. Hall III. Any discussion?
Move to issue.
Second.
Resolve that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to John P. Hall III for the proposed project upon the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Preliminary review, secret determination, A 022037510 Halsey Road LLC.
This application relates to two abutting lots that are going to be merged for the purposes of residential redevelopment. One lot contains an existing residence. Second lot is vacant. The lot with the dwelling has bulkheaded frontage along a dug lagoon or a canal that flows out into Middle Pond. The vacant lot has interior brackish wetlands associated with flooded drainage corridor along Little Neck Road. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated May 28, 2025, which provides a pretty exhaustive history in terms of communications that were had between my office and the applicant in order to request modifications to the original project plans in the interest of bettering protection of the on-site and adjacent wetlands. The applicant has finally come forward this month with a revised survey that is consistent with my recommendations in terms of house and pool and IA design. It provides the recommended covenanted naturally vegetated buffers that would be restored. The on-site wetlands would also be protected. That being said, there's some additional details that yet need to be shown on this final survey. And the extent of fill needs to be scaled back so that it's reserved to the location of the IAOWTS as required by the health department as much as is practicable. Because these lots are in a flood zone and are located partially seaward of the limit of moderate wave action, the house will need to be constructed on pilings in order to be FEMA compliant. So there's no need for a fill deposition for the purposes of construction of the residence and landscaping. The applicant has, as indicated, agreed with my recommended mitigating measures for these properties. This is an application for which we have sufficient information to make a determination. As such, I'm recommending that the public hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing.
Second.
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-80 of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A024076, Jennifer Miller and Brian Miller.
This application relates to a residentially developed property at 358 West Neck Road in the Hamlet of North Sea. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated May 20, 2025. The application was made in order to construct a screened porch within the footprint of an existing elevated deck. There is an existing required covenanted wetland preservation area and wetland non-disturbance buffer that was required as a condition of a former Conservation Board permit. The board had also had that area re-vegetated. That area has since been significantly disturbed. There is generous mowed lawn within the required naturally vegetated buffer as well. So the applicant is amenable to restoring the buffer and the impacted areas of wetlands consistent with the native planting plan that the board had previously approved under a prior ownership. They're also going to install drywalls and drainage pipes to accommodate the roof runoff, because right now the downspouts are discharging that runoff on the ground, and it's going right down towards the buffer and wetlands. There are also some minor other improvements, such as paver walks, that need to be legalized and shown on the survey. That being said, this is an application for which we have sufficient information to make a determination. As such, I'm recommending that the public hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing.
Second.
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-80 of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 024077, Colin Heffron, and the applicant requests postponement to June 11th, 2025.
Motion to postpone to June 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 025008, Eric Bamberger and Marlo Bamberger.
This application relates to a residentially developed property with frontage on Sacopa Cove. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated May 22nd, 2025. The applicant is seeking a wetland permit from this board in order to redevelop the property as described by the advisory report. The new project plans would cite the new house and swimming pool considerably landward of the existing home location at compliant wetland construction setbacks. The applicant is amenable to establishing a 75-foot wide naturally vegetated covenanted buffer at this site. There is a small detached garage that the applicant is going to retain and renovate, which is a little bit closer to wetlands, but it really poses no issues in terms of adverse wetland impacts. This is a project where I've spent a considerable amount of time working with the architect, the consequence of which is that we have an excellent plan for the site that will offer quite a lot in terms of enhancing protection for Sag Harbor Cove. As such, we have sufficient information to make a determination. Accordingly, I'm recommending that the public hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing.
Second.
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-80 of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 025016, Eric Grave and Margaret Grave.
This application relates to an existing residentially developed property that has bulkheaded frontage along the water. The applicant has filed for a permit in order to elevate the existing home so that it'd be FEMA compliant. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated May 22nd, 2025. The applicant has an attached garage on the north side. That garage will be converted to a living area as part of the elevation of the structure. And then a new garage will be built on the landward side of the house. There is also a elevated seaside deck, which is planned. The existing conventional sanitary system will be upgraded to an IAOWTS. The macadam driveway will be removed and replaced with a pervious Drive. I had recommended that a 25-foot wide naturally vegetated buffer be established along the bulkhead, which I'm happy to say the applicant is amenable to. That being said, we have sufficient information to make a determination. As such, recommending that the hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing?
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-80 of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all.